Hi, welcome to PeopleTools Tech Tips. I'm Randy Gronke. Today we're going to add watermarks to PDF documents using PeopleCode. Today we're going to use PeopleSoft delivered app packages to put watermarks onto PDFs. Now we can generate these PDFs using BI Publisher, which generate PDFs in Excel and a couple of other things. But however, we can also use PDF generated from somewhere else. A real life example, a PR and invoice with workflow. It's going through several people. They may want to print that out to look at it, hand it, confer with somebody else. Well, if it's not approved yet, we're going to put a big pending right across the top of the document, every page, to let everyone know that's looking at that is not an approved final document. But as soon as the document is finally totally approved, it loses the watermark and it looks like an official document. We also have done that with workflow in the HR for people moving around. Their approval for their household goods had pending on them until it was approved by all the proper people, which then no longer had pending. We can also use graphics instead of text to put a company logo or whatever is needed by the users onto the page. Creating the BI Publisher documents we use to merge together in our PDFs is not in the scope of this video. Find our other video, which talks about merging PDF documents, for a detailed explanation of how we created the documents. In this, it's the same code. Jump ahead to the timings here for the specific sections on text or image watermarks, the demonstration or the code for them. As always, visit PeopleToolsTechTips.com for all objects and code in this demonstration. We can download it as a PeopleTools project and upload it into your PUM, and you can walk along and see this code in action in your own PUM. So let's start with a walkthrough of our demonstration page before we get into the code that makes it work. This is our page to demonstrate the watermarks. It will let us switch between text and image watermarks and change several of the parameters instead of editing PeopleCode every time to see the effect on the result. The Join PDFs button generates two small BI Publisher documents as PDFs and merges them into a common document. The PDFMerger class applies either a text or image watermark as chosen here. Please see our video on merging BI Publisher PDF documents with PeopleCode for a detailed explanation on how we are generating the contributing PDF files. Let's look at the PeopleCode for generating text watermarks in our merged PDF document. I'm going to do all the work in this app class to help separate and clarify the watermark PeopleCode. First, we need to import PSXP Engine app package, which contains all the classes we need for our merging, page numbering, and watermarking. Here I am instantiating the objects we need. The PDFMerger object will merge one or more documents into a new PDF document. This class also contains the properties for page numbering and watermarking. The page number object will number our document pages after the merge. The watermark object will let us define text or image watermarks for our merged PDF document. We already created two small PDF documents with this class here using BI Publisher. Again, see the PDF merging video for a detailed code walkthrough on these documents. We are placing the URLs of our generated PDFs into our array for the merge object. I'm putting each document in twice just to create a larger resulting document for demonstration purposes. Note that these URLs are strings pointing to the documents, not the BI Publisher document objects or binaries of the PDFs themselves. Here I'm generating a fully qualified URL to place the resulting merged PDF. The class does not alter the contributing documents but generates a new document with the results of the merge. This is just instantiating a file object with a known name in the temporary directory and using that file object's properties to return the fully qualified URL to that file. Here we are setting the page number properties. The merger object's page number property is a page number object type, so we can just set it equal to our page number object. Now let's see the text properties on our watermark object. Our first property is page index. The default of 0 will place the watermark on every page in the document. A value of 1 will place the watermark only on the first page. A 2 will place it on the second page, and so on. The text property is the actual text of the watermark. Note that all the special characters such as line feeds are stripped out when rendering. I'm assigning the value from the page desker field to this property. Our next property is text font name. This takes a string. From what I can see, the available fonts are the same fonts listed in the PeopleBooks for the page number class. If you choose a font that's not available or not installed on the executing machine, the watermark class will default back to Helvetica. Since the default is Helvetica, I'll choose that here. The text start poseX property is an integer specifying where to place the first character of the watermark string in the horizontal x-axis of the page going from left to right. The default is 0. Here, I'm setting it to the value of the x-axis field from the page. The text start poseY property is an integer specifying where to place the first character of the string on a vertical y-axis of the page, starting from the bottom of the page going to the top. The default again is 0. I'm setting it to the value of the y-axis field on the page. The XY position specifies where the first character of the string will print. You're going to have to move this around should that first character not start at the bottom left of the page. The text angle defines the angle the text string will be placed on the page. The default of 0 places the text in a normal left to right horizontal string on the page. A value 90 will place the watermark vertically on the page from the bottom to the top. A 270 angle will place the watermark on the page vertically from top to bottom. Again, as per our text angle value, you will have to shift the XY axis values to correctly display the watermark on the page. Text font size defines the size of the text watermark. The default is something around 50 to 60 points should you not populate this field. Just like the page number, the PDFMerger object's watermark property is an object type watermark, so we can set that property equal to our watermark object here. Finally, we do the merge and bring this all together. We set the error string to blank, then we execute the merge PDFs method in the PDFMerger object. The first parameter is the array of contributing PDFs. The second parameter is the target URL of the new merged PDF document. Last parameter is the error string. Lastly, we're displaying our new merged PDF document to the user using delivered file attachment functions. Let's see how text watermarking works in real time. Our demo page, we have most of the parameters for the watermark. The text string to use as a watermark, the bottom x-axis coordinate, the bottom y-axis coordinate, the font size and text angle. Clicking the Join PDFs button gives us a basic text watermark. Let's move the watermark to a vertical string on the right side of the page. The first character string needs to be in the upper right side of the page for the string to flow down. X-axis equals 500, y-axis equals 750. Text angle equals 1070. This is vertical down. Reduce the font size to 60 since there is less space in the vertical from the diagonal. Click the Join PDFs button and we see our watermark running top to bottom on the right side of the page. Let's move that same string to the horizontal on the bottom of the page. We need to move our first character coordinates to the bottom left of the page. X-axis equals 50. Change your angle to 0. Y-axis equals 20. Click our button and see the results with the watermark at the bottom of the page. An important idea here is that the watermark is not constrained by the page. Our current font size and angle is too large for the width of the page, so the watermark only displays what fits. You have to imagine the watermark continuing off the page to the right if the document was wider. Let's correct with a smaller font of 45 and see how that corrects the problem. Our horizontal watermark now fits the page. Here I want to show you a bug I found in watermarking dealing with fonts other than default Helvetica. I'm going to change the font from Helvetica to ZapF Dingbats, a font that is installed on this server. The watermark setting is for a diagonal string across the page. We see our first page correctly contains the watermark in the chosen font. However, for all the subsequent pages, the font changed back to the default Helvetica. This has happened for all the non-Helvetica fonts I've tested so far. If we change the font back to Helvetica, the text watermark appears properly on the pages. Choosing a font that is not available to the server does something a little different. It appears on the first page in the default Helvetica font. However, the watermark does not appear on any of the subsequent pages. Now let's walk through the code to create an image-based watermark. I'm using a different class here than the text watermark to help separate and clarify the code. Much of the basic code is the same as the text watermark. Here is our PSXP engine app package containing all the classes needed for merging, page numbering, and watermarking a PDF. Again, we're using another class to create 2 small PDFs using BI Publisher. All I need from this is the URLs to the created PDFs. We're instantiating the same classes as the text watermark: PDFMerger, page number, watermark. Here we're putting the PDF URLs into an array of string that we will hand over to the merger class. The documents will be merged into the new document in the order they're placed in this array. I'm putting each document in twice just to get a larger merged PDF document for demonstration purposes. Find a location to place the new merged PDF file. If you don't have a specified location, this is a way to prefetch a known location in the temp directory. Here we are putting in page numbering just to show that page numbering and watermarking are compatible. Now let's look through the setting properties of the image watermark. What you see here is the code looping through the image row set at the bottom of the page to find out which image has been selected for the watermark. Since the PDFMerger object uses a URL to the image file and not an image file itself, the image must exist in a location the executing server has access. If your architecture has a common file location accessible by all application report servers, then the image can exist in that one file server one time. All application report servers will have access to that image file in a common location. If your architecture does not have common file server locations for all application report servers, an image file on one server may not be available to all application report servers. My solution assumes that not all app and report servers have the common file server. I'm storing the image in the database as an image. At execution time, I'm using the attachment function to copy the image from the database to that server's temp file location. Now the server is guaranteed to have access to the URL of that image for the PDFMerger watermark. Here, I'm using a custom class to copy the image out of the Oracle table and onto the file on the server where the code event can access it. Here's the page index property. 0 means to place the watermark on all pages of the merged document. The image file property is a string for the fully qualified URL of the image. Again, it's a reference to the image, not the image itself. Next is the lower left XY coordinates for the image placement. Image lower left X property is the X-axis coordinate from left to right. Image lower left Y property is the Y-axis coordinate from the bottom to the top. The default of both these properties are 0. Should you not populate them, the image will start in the absolute bottom left of the page. The upper right coordinates default is the actual image dimensions. If you don't populate these properties, the image will display in the native size starting with your bottom left XY coordinates. The image upper right X refers to the top right-hand corner of the image on the X-axis from left to right. The image upper right Y refers to the top right-hand corner of the image on the Y-axis from the bottom to the top. We set all our coordinate property values to page field values so we can demonstrate without constantly changing code. The image watermark will skew an image if you set your upper right-hand XY coordinates to values that do not reflect proportions of the actual image. The resulting watermark will be too tall, short, narrow, or wide. And here the PDFMerger watermark property is of object type watermark, so we can set it equal to our watermark object. Now let's do the actual merge again. Clear the error string, call the merge PDFs method with the parameters, the array holding the URLs to the PDFs to be merged, the URL of our new merged PDF file, and the error string. Again, we're using the file attachment functions to pop the new merged document to a new browser tab. Last here, we're cleaning up after ourselves by cleaning up the watermark image I placed on the server. Let's see how the image watermarks work in real time. Let's change our type to image. I've loaded 2 images to use as watermarks, a 150 by 150 image and a 2560 by 1440 image. The selected checkbox determines which image the code will use. Let's start with our small image. The bottom left coordinates are set slightly off the bottom right of the page. The top right coordinates are in exact proportion to the image. Here's our document with our watermark in the bottom left of every page. Now let's move that image higher and see the results. The image is more than halfway up the page on the left side. Now let's move it down a little bit and force the image to be double the native size. We see the results of the image much larger than its original size, covering most of the page now. So let's go the other way and shrink the image on the page. Changing the upper right coordinates to 100 by 100 will create a 50 by 50 image on the bottom left hand of the page. Now let's look at a much larger image and how that behaves. You can see this image is huge, much larger than the page itself. We're going to select it and place it in the bottom left of the page. Like the text watermark, the image watermark is not constrained by the size of the page. Only the portion of the image fitting on the page at the set parameters is shown. Let's shrink down the image. Upper y-axis is set at 750 with a proportional x-axis. Now the whole image displays on the page. Before continuing on, let's talk about the image a little bit. The image is being placed on a layer in the document underneath the content. If your image is too complex or dark, it could obscure your content, making it difficult or impossible for the user to read. You'll notice my image here is washed out. I did this by using an image editing software to change the image's opacity to 33%. Even then, I could argue that this image is too dark for a watermark. Let's change the image to be really small, about 200 pixels high on the upper right side of the page. A note about PeopleBooks and the Watermark class documentation. The Watermark class documentation is in the PeopleCode API reference under BI Publisher documentation. Under general information about the Watermark class, all the properties are defined correctly. However, under the Properties section, the image XY upper left, bottom right positions have incorrect property names. So that's watermarking. It's pretty easy. We just set up a merger, we set our watermark properties, we do the merger, and we have our watermarks in our documents. Be really conscious of your XY coordinates, where you're starting, where you're ending, and the size of your watermark, because the watermark will go clean off the page. Maybe that's something artistic that you want to do. However, it will happen if you're not controlling it. Thanks for watching. Like and comment below, and please consider subscribing to our channel to be notified of future videos. We'll see you next time here on PeopleTools Tech Tips.